All right, all right. You guys, we're so pumped to be here. Welcome, Trevor, to the Fit and Faith podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. That was such a cool intro.
Isn't that fun?
It's so
I always
fun.
get so excited. They make me want to dance because it's a different soundtrack every time. That's awesome. So I'm so pumped to have you. I know that you're going to just serve the community in such a beautiful way, as you always do on the social media outlets in which we got originally connected. So if you guys want to pull out your phone right now and follow Trevor Talks or the Trevor Talks podcast, right?
Yeah.
And Fear is a Liar Co. Is that the other Instagram handle?
You got it right.
Woo-hoo, I'm not even looking at anyone.
Good.
That's pretty good. But you guys, he's got all the things going on in such a positive way. And just, I think usually people use this for females, like you're a ray of sunshine, but I really feel that way when I consume your content. And I'm excited for you to dive into like the heartbeat of what that is and how it's been a journey for you to get to where you are today. So introduce yourself, tell them about your story, and let's jump into the good, juicy stuff.
Yeah, so my name is Trevor Tyson. I'm a 23-year-old from a little town called Social Circle, Georgia. Yes, you heard that right, Social Circle.
So
it fits so well with social media and everything. It's just why leave? It's just a built-in plug and a joke all in one. So I started struggling with anxiety when I was about 16, 17 years old. I was a senior in high school and I had a panic attack at an event. Mind you, I was on tour promoting a big event on the National Mall called Together 2016. It was supposed to be the largest Jesus gathering in American history. So in high school, I was out interning and promoting with them. And I had a panic attack in Birmingham, Alabama. And I remember clear as day, everything about it. And it was just agonizing. It was degrading. I didn't know what was going on with me. And it was painful. And that was my first real experience with panic that I can remember. And from there, I canceled all the plans that I had for my life and kind of went dormant in like the quote unquote American dream for almost 3 years. I started working as a sales rep for AT&T and quickly climbed the chain, became the #1 sales rep with the company. And it was like all of these things on the outside looked like they were going great. I bought a house at 19 years old. Like all of these outside appearance things were going great, but inside I was like dying inside. I hated it. I wasn't fulfilling my calling, and I was definitely experiencing a ton of depression and anxiety from that. So I got to a point to where I was anxious about being anxious. I didn't want to leave the house. I kind of got agoraphobic. And to a point, I never like contemplated suicide or anything, but I didn't see a point in living, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So from that, I was like, okay, God, like I know there's more to life than this. There has to be more than this. So I started going back to my roots and started making like devotional videos and putting them on Facebook. And then I switched over to Instagram. And when I had the mental breakdown in 2016, I deleted all my social media. So I got back on social media, started making videos, and it kind of evolved into what Trevor Talks is today. God gave me a platform through it. And for some odd reason, people enjoy listening and seeing my content. And it's just been the craziest journey ever. So even like the whole podcast aspect of it, but the fact that I'm able to get on stages and talk about it is still weird to me. And so like it's a whole testimony of what God can do through the like most broken people.
Yeah.
You know, so like I was letting fear and anxiety drag me down for so long. And then once I was like, okay, God, if this is what you want me to do, this is what I'm going to do. And once I quit worrying about what I'm going to do and just started doing what I felt God wanted me to do, that's when everything changed.
That's huge. That's a crazy power piece for people to hold on to and grasp hold of, because I think even in the fear factor of stepping into what that is and what that unknown, it's already so unknowing when you're sitting in anxiety and depression.
Yes.
And I've been there, and I know how isolating it is and how every minute you're not really sure what the next emotion is going to be that comes over you. And also grasping hold of something that's constant. And honestly, what becomes comfortable is the constant of anxiety and depression.
Yeah.
And so it's this weird space of, oh, this is me. So let me, like you said, kind of recluse and stay alone in these emotions rather than propelling yourself into this place of discomfort, this place of unknown, allowing God to kind of steward where it is that he would have you go, and that purpose-driven life that we all so desperately want, but aren't really sure what that looks like.
Yeah. And it's like isolation becomes what you think is your friend, right?
Yeah.
When you're anxious and you're depressed, you don't want to be around anybody. And you think that, okay, if I stay here in the comfort of my home and don't get around anybody, I'm going to feel better. But when it comes down to it, you're just making it worse.
Yeah.
If you get uncomfortable for just a little bit and you go to a community group or go hang out with a friend or a sibling or your parents, like, and just decompress and be honest about what you're going through, that's when you're going to start to feel better. All that weight is going to start coming off of you. And it's not going to be like Benny Hinn slapped you in the face and you're healed type thing. Now, I'm not saying God can't do that.
Happen. Yeah, that's right.
It can, but in a lot of cases, including mine, God didn't choose to heal me in that way.
Yeah.
And we have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
We have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
And if you come to the conclusion that God's going to heal you in that way, or maybe he does heal you in that way, that's amazing. Share your testimony because it can happen, but don't be offended when it doesn't, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And he's not like calling somebody out or calling somebody in any more than he is you or the next person. It's just the matter of ownership in that space. And I feel like that's the place where we as daughters and sons have an opportunity to just stand in that identity factor of this is who God calls me to be, and this is who I'm going to answer within, rather than running into that dark. If you think about like where mold grows, it's as similar as like weeds, like it grows in the dark, and therefore nothing fruitful is established in that place. You have to have sun, you have to have light, you have to have that ray of sunshine. Like
so good.
Right? I didn't even know that was
so
coming
good.
out.
So good.
Is like the recognition of that and being okay that out of the darkness, right, is the place that we get to thrive. But we have to be okay in that discomfort. And so in your transition from that place of comfort in the depression, how did you feel like, what were some opportunities or steps or tools that you utilized?
So the first thing I did, quite ironically, was I called a ton of therapists around the area. When I literally had a day where I woke up and I was like, we're getting through this. It's going to happen. I'm not living in this anymore. And I woke up and had that epiphany and was like, okay, here's how it's going to go. I'm going to call a therapist and get an appointment. So I started calling local therapists, and I kid you not, every single phone was disconnected that day. Like nobody answered, and it all went to like, this number is no longer in service. And I'm like, I know good and well I passed that place yesterday and it was open. So I don't know what you're trying to tell me, God.
Come on, social circle, get with the program.
Yes. And I was like, well, I'm doing something today to mark that, like, this season is done. Yeah. We're going further. Like, we're not going to let this defeat me. So I got a tattoo. I got Second Kings 2:9 tattooed on my arm, which is asking God for a double portion of your life. It was prophesied over me at the Georgia Dome, a Winter Jam event, by my now spiritual parents, Tina and Todd. Like, they're the greatest people ever, and they're still in my life today. Like, wow, it was just an amazing thing, and that's a whole other story. But I don't think we have time for that. But I got the tattoo, and I was like, God, I'm asking for a double portion of your spirit. And I kid you not, right when I walked out of the tattoo parlor, I got a message from Tina and Todd for an article that Lou Engle wrote that was saying the next Billy Graham of our generation is going to have 2 Kings 2:9 embedded in his life. And I'm like, I just got that inked on my arm, y'all.
Wow.
And it's just all this, like, I don't know if your listeners believe in like prophesying and everything, but there's just so many crazy things that happen, like, to the point, the same people, after I got another tattoo for a similar reason, I got a feather on the back of my arm for The Dream Giver by Bruce Wilkinson.
Okay.
They gave me that book after we had met at the Winter Jam event. And the same day I got the tattoo, around the same time, they just ironically got this sign behind me that is the same feather that I got tattooed on my arm.
Wow.
So, like, it's just all this crazy stuff. But
no, I like totally believe in
awesome.
that. And I think this is where when people are like, well, how do you hear from from God, or what does the voice of God sound like? It's less about just a sound thing and more about an eyes wide open thing and a receiving experience of, this is not coincidence. This is not the universe. This is like literally God utilizing a vessel, which may be a voice, which may be a thing, which may be a tattoo, to speak life into you in that very moment of need. So I have to speak into something really quick because it's so hilarious that you said you got a tattoo. One, I have multiple tattoos, but the reason being is that I really like adrenaline. And there are some people on here right now who know that I'm like a push you out of the airplane kind of girl, yet I haven't gone skydiving. Yes, I am. But like in a healthy way, right? Yeah. But I found both through my husband depositing this information into me and then researching it afterwards to make sure I didn't completely just make it up, or he didn't make it up, is that adrenaline actually exists in the body in the time of anxiety, just like it does when you're doing something positive towards adrenaline. And so in that experience of fight or flight, which you're probably familiar with, something bad is about to happen. And so you're either a fighter or you're going to run away. That recluse, that depression, that anxiety draws you into that darkness, right? And so that same adrenaline that's taking place when you're experiencing an anxiety attack is the same adrenaline that goes off in your body when you're getting a tattoo, when you're about to go out on stage to share your testimony, when you're about to go live on a podcast and, you know, there's going to be thousands of people listening. So there's a space which God can utilize that same exact place of weakness, that same exact place of darkness, and say, no, this is mine. Let me give it to you in goodness. And so whether you believe in getting tattoos or whatever that part is, we are not going to go there. But I have some tattoos with you alongside you. And they speak life to me every single time I look at the 100 billion song, So Will I. It's like, if a rock can cry out, if a star can shine, if the ocean can roar your thunder, then so will I. Yeah. And so it's proclaiming every single minute of every single day in these God-given voices that he's alive and active and real and present and wanting to call you into this place of greater purpose.
So good.
I love it. I love it. So I want to go into this understanding of lies, and fear as a liar is not only your company name, but really like your slogan, your tagline, your heartbeat. Explain and unpack that for us, because I could go 1,000 ways, but I want to hear it from you.
Yeah. So fear as a liar started as just like an idea that I want to create merchandise that I want to wear, that I like to wear. I don't like wearing like, nothing against like Nike and Adidas, but I just don't see a point in being a billboard for these huge companies. Yeah. So I wanted to wear something that had some purpose to it. So me and a few people were like having these discussions, and it's like anxiety lied to me for so long. It was lying, but I didn't want it to be generic, but I wanted it to be a little bit more than just a anxiety sucks kind of campaign. I wanted it to be something that everybody can get behind. It's like, what can you embed in the word fear? Like you can have financial distress, depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts. All of these things can be classified as fear in your life. Therefore, fear is a liar. And I even did a video for it, I guess, a year ago. And I said, my name is Trevor Tyson and my fear is a liar. And a good friend of mine, Lacey Sturm, was like, you just claimed fear as your identity in that. My fear is a liar. So I'm even still learning, like, I don't say my fear anymore. And whenever I hear people say my anxiety is over the top today, I know they don't mean it in that way, but why speak that over your life? So fear is a liar is really just still evolving into what it is today. I'm working on a campaign right now, which we're going to launch later this month, which you're the first person that'll hear it and your listeners. It's called Stronger Than Your Symptoms. So you're stronger than your symptoms. You're stronger than your anxiety. You're stronger than your depression. You're stronger than your suicidal thoughts. These things are not your identity. You're stronger than those. You're stronger than anxiety. You're stronger than your mental health in general. Therefore, all of these things are symptoms of what? Fear. So you're stronger than your symptoms. It's not your identity. It's not who you were created to be. You can be identified by your thumbprint. You can be identified by your voice. When people hear your voice on your podcast, they know it's you.
Yeah.
You could be identified by your face, unless you just get so much Botox that you can't.
Nope. None of that here. I'll wrinkle.
Yeah. So like, I've got a thumbprint or a fingerprint, which is actually mine, but we had to tweak it a little bit for security, obviously.
Cool.
But you're stronger than your symptoms. So that's where I just want to come up with campaigns that people can easily get behind and feel like it's their movement and run with it. I did not make the company to get rich. I did not make the company to excel Trevor Tyson. That's why the whole brand is Trevor Talks now. I don't care for the recognition in it.
Yeah.
So this is all like Trevor Talks and Fear is a Liar. These are brands for people to get behind.
Yeah.
It's like, I know I'm not the only person struggling. There are millions of people out there struggling with this stuff, hundreds of millions possibly.
Yeah.
So how can we get behind it? How can we get behind you? How can we share your story?
Yeah.
And instead of calling it Fear is a Liar podcast, I was like, there's way too many things called Fear is a Liar. I know I'm not the first person to say it. I know I'm not the last person to say it. After we launched the brand, like I think a week later, Zach Williams came out with a song called Fear is a Liar. So now every time people read it, and they're like, I love that song. And I was like, it's got a great message behind it, doesn't it? Like, come on, Jesus.
So good.
So it's just super cool to see people get behind it. And even when we go to speak at events and seeing people wear the merch, like it's just crazy. And one time I was in the airport and saw somebody wearing it, and I was like, that's what awesome. A small world. Like it's tiny. So,
yeah. I think that's what makes it so beautiful, though, in the sense that we get to really create community around our brands, around the mission, and ultimately around Jesus, because that's where the heartbeat of even Fear is a Liar comes from, is to say, you're going to take fear, which I love that whoever it was that said, it's not right? Because I don't own it. I don't want to have it. It's not mine to own anyway. God didn't gift me fear. He gifted me gifts. He gifted me blessings. He gifted me my thumbprint, my fingerprint, and even the things that I use in capacity, such as my body, such as my heart, such as my voice, all of that. And so to make it this separate entity and realize that the enemy doesn't have control even over that entity, but you can shove it over here and let the enemy deal with it while we get to stand in that identity of who we're called to be and really claim via even a slogan what it is that God would have us do every given moment. It's kind of the value of a tattoo, right? It's being able to see the thing and be reminded, not that I forget that this is my call, but there are moments where you're going to see 2 Kings 2:9 and be like, oh yeah, there is like such a higher call in my life. Whether you're like, today, I just want to sit and do nothing. Like, we don't have that luxury, you guys.
Yeah.
We don't have that, gift of time. I recently, our community lost a dear friend, brother, pastor, spokesperson to suicide. And I never was directly in contact with this person, but I was one removed by all of his best friends. And I was so caught off guard by the emotion that overwhelmed me in this experience. One, because I've stood in that place of wanting to take my life and knowing that I did so when I was a mother, did so when I was a wife, did so when I was living, like you said, the American dream. And why is it that in a place that is supposed to be beautiful, in a place that is supposed to be within our identity, we're feeling isolated, we're feeling so distraught by that we're presumably being pushed towards this thing, this cloud of fear that we are taking ownership within. And so I am just honored, one, to hear that you're bringing the mission to other cities. You're bringing the mission to the mirror, ultimately, by let me wear this so that I can claim it over my life today, even when I don't always feel that way. And I think that's the power of like a tattoo to me. So like, what is your brand? And I'm saying this to the listener, what is the thing that like really wakes you up in the morning? What is the thing that you want to go to sleep knowing through and through that this is what I owned today in my life? And you moved the needle towards that message some way. So I'm just loving what it is that you're doing. I think the next session and the next understanding of this new branded identity and this new movement is so powerful, because strength is often masked as one, masculine, like only guys can do this thing, right? Or it's also understood that strength in the fact that you can get past something. But what if the strength is actually sitting with the raw emotion of the anxiety, of the depression, of the loneliness, and actually unpacking that root, which is fear? And did you not do this with your therapist? Did you end up going to a therapist, by the way?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
And I went through EDMR therapy, which
cool.
was really, really beneficial for me. But tagging off what you said, like people thinking only guys can have strength. Why is it that only women can be emotional?
Seriously.
All of these toxic gender caps and such are so damaging. And the big thing with my personal brand is vulnerability. I'll post pictures of me right after I got done crying, like not for attention, but just because some guy needs to see that it's okay to cry.
Yeah.
And for some reason, there's just so much toxic masculinity. And even on the feminine side, like girls can't be strong. Like I've met way more girls that are stronger than I am, like than you would ever imagine. And it's like, here we are, like not even ironically, I think we were supposed to record a few weeks ago and it just didn't happen. And here we are on election day where people are so anxious. And for some reason, I'm not going to say for some reason, God has gifted me with the ability to not get anxious about politics for a crazy reason. It's like, I don't thrive in chaos, but I can definitely operate, you know?
Yeah.
So people get so upset and so driven by politics. And especially for some reason, when it comes to like the church, you have a few different sides of the church that just get behind one person, like politically, and they claim it as almost Jesus.
Yeah.
It's like on both sides.
Right.
And the same church, both sides.
It's so
and
true.
It's like, if you vote for this person, you're not a Christian. If you vote for this person, you're not a Christian. That is such whack theology.
Yeah. Yeah. It's horrible.
It's true. Like
horrible.
I saw somebody the other day that literally was claiming, if you don't vote for Trump, you're not a Christian. And then a few posts down, I saw somebody say the same thing about Joe Biden. Then a few posts down, it was Kanye West. And I was like, how? I just don't get it.
Yeah.
I think this election, and I don't want to get too deep into politics, but personally, you can say it's crazy or like we can have an honest discussion.
Yeah.
This election, you're going to see very little independent votes. You're not going to see the huge influx. Next election, I think we're going to see the biggest independent turnout that we've ever seen. Yeah. Just because this election is super crucial for whatever side you're on, for whatever agendas that are going to get pushed. But the next year, you're going to have a new president regardless. There's not going to be someone running for re-election.
Yeah.
So I feel like you're going to see a lot of people getting fed up with Republican and Democrat, and you're going to see a lot of people going straight through the middle. I'm not saying that we'll see an independent win next election, but we're going to definitely see a huge turnout for that. People are getting tired of the whole red and blue thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree. And I think ultimately, even in that identity factor of I am Republican or I am Democrat, it's a false idol, honestly. Yeah. If you want to like really go down to the understanding of putting power in something, an entity, that fear, right? Putting power in that place and identifying yourself, my Republican Party, my Democratic Party. What happens if tomorrow something just out of this world, not that 2020 hasn't already been out of this world, but something even like catastrophic happens based on the umbrella of one of those parties, either or, right?
Yeah.
Then where does that identity factor for you come into play?
Sure.
And so therefore we should never put our understanding or full trust in a man, and I say man or woman, in a party, in an identity that is not owned by our thumbprint, that is not God himself, because God is the one who stewards any political party based on the fact of them submitting to him or trying to control it. And ultimately, I know what it looks like when I tried to control anything in my life. And it ended up being a rug pulled out from under me, not for the Lord to get me on my knees, but for me to come to a realization of submission so that I could serve in the way that I am purposed to serve.
So good. So good.
I'm with you all day. Like, I'm not political. Like, it's just not
I'm
something
not either.
you're going to see.
I've never once been like, I'm a hardcore Republican I'm a hardcore Democrat.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel like more people are voting a color than what they actually believe.
Yeah.
Right. Because maybe you grew up a certain race or just had something hammered down your throat. Like, you have to do this.
Yeah.
And no, you don't.
Yeah, I agree.
It's not inked at all.
Yeah, it's not a tattoo. And if it is, we need to have a conversation.
Yeah, like I know some really good tattoo artists. I can cover that up for you.
Yes, exactly. So this morning I'm standing in line in the wee hours of the morning when it's still dark outside and everybody's super quiet, right? Like nobody's talking to myself. Well, when I got there, I saw one of my girlfriends and I like, first off, she was further up in line. So I ran right up to her and like, I'm standing with you. Secondly, we're having a great conversation just about family and everything. And they're passing out the sample ballots so that people can kind of review. Still, everyone is completely silent in their mask outside. We won't talk about that. And listening with their headphones, right? And so we're talking just out loud. I'm not worried about sound or anything. And the person directly in front of the person in front of us, so two people up front, a rat. Like, this is the body of the rat. I can't get into the frame, the size of the rat. Runs across this guy's shoe, like literally across his feet. And the guy in front of us, who's directly behind him, jumps. It's the first sound we've heard him make the entire time. Starts cracking up, laughing. Is like, dude, a rat just ran across your feet. And I'm like, oh, I hope you're voting for the right person. That could have been a sign from heaven right there. And so the whole line is just cracking up, wondering, of course, at this point, who are you voting for? And I was like,
what country do you live in?
Virginia Beach.
Virginia Beach. I was like, I knew it was Virginia because the sticker, one of my friends put on their story, they go to Liberty University. Yeah. They had the same sticker. And I was like, that's a cool sticker. Georgia has a peach on it.
Is it? I know. I guess ours is really cool. It's very American.
It looks so presidential.
It is very presidential.
Are you running?
I should be. I actually wanted to. That's a part of my storyline. I wanted to be the president. I was the president of my elementary, president of my middle school, ran for president of my high school. Oh, no way.
I was president in high school. And I took it kind of serious, but as serious as you could take it. But one of the things in my re-election thing, which we ended up winning, which was funny, is I jokingly said I was going to build a wall on the freshman bathroom because they kept like wasting toilet paper and like, yeah. So
the real problems of the world, right?
The real problems
Solving
of the world.
The real problems of the world.
Had to do it.
But yeah, it was one of those moments where you just like, okay, if God is everywhere, what does this mean? What's happening? And what is this guy processing that a rat just ran across his feet? Like, that's no good.
I can't even imagine that. Like, I live in a tiny town. I wasn't even in line for maybe 2 minutes.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Like, I was in and out. It's like literally a tiny country church right down the road from me, not even a mile. So I just drove there and I was back home within 20 minutes.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. We've got an interesting year ahead, the rest of this year. And I think ultimately, as you're coming out with this new message, like how do you see that just infusing the spirits of believers and non-believers alike? Because we know that the enemy does not discriminate based on a believer or a non-believer. Especially when it comes to anxiety and depression and like, again, like losing lives. People are literally taking their lives and losing lives every single day, even over this experience. And so it's everywhere. It's so prominent. And I want people to be able to grasp hold of truth and light and realize that there is an opportunity of freedom in that place of isolation.
Which is so wild that I started the year, it was supposed to be the busiest touring year that I've had. I was out promoting the I Still Believe movie, Jeremy Camp's biopic. So I was on an arena tour doing the red carpet stuff in the concourse every night. And the tour gets canceled. I started Fear is a Liar about 2 years ago. But this pandemic happening gave me the ability to come home and be able to relaunch it, bring all the inventory home, start writing handwritten notes into every single package. I pack them and ship them myself.
Awesome.
So I relaunched the clothing brand, have like done more with it in this pandemic than I ever have been, had the most sales, like just actually did something with it.
Nice.
But the podcast wouldn't have happened when it did if the pandemic wouldn't have happened, because right when we got to Pensacola, Florida, they shut the tour down. So I flew home. I could have stayed and rode the bus back to Nashville, but I was like, no, like I'm flying to Nashville to drive home to Georgia, and we're doing this right now because I've wanted to do this for so long. And like, I've already had the name and everything, the domain name, whole 9 yards is already done.
Yeah.
I just haven't had time to do it. So Trevor Talks Podcast and the Fear is a Liar relaunch happened as a result of this pandemic.
So amazing. And I think that's like where all these people, you hear the coin term this year, it feels like, how are you pivoting, right? Like, what's your pivot? How are you
walk out of this pandemic the same person you didn't?
Oh, it's like, so true.
If you're listening to this podcast right now, it's not too late to start something new.
Yeah.
I hope there's not another shutdown, but there are talks about it.
Yeah.
Like if you failed, and I don't think you could fail during a pandemic, like you're already there.
It's already pretty tough.
It's already pretty tough. But if you have a business idea or anything like that, you don't have to be rich to do it. Just use what you have.
Yeah.
There are so many free outlets. Like if you want to start a clothing brand, you can go on Bonfire or Teespring. And there's so many other amazing sites that you can use to start this at zero cost. You just design it on either the platform itself. You can do it on Canva, custom ink. You can get on there and do that. And you don't have to invest in the merchandise. You drop ship it.
Yep.
So even if you're not making that much profit, you're one step ahead that you didn't have a few hours ago.
Yeah. And to know that like your brand is developing, and then there comes a time when you can bring it in-house and that flips the profit on its head. I think as a business coach this year, I have seen so many women, strong women, step into this experience of purpose and realize like there is no better time than actually right now. And for us to see it as this Esther movement, as this experience to raise your hand and step into this training ground, this fertile soil that God has literally prepared for us. We talked about false idols before, like there's nothing else to worship. There's no sports, there's no concerts, there's no red carpets, there's no, venues happening. It's like, it's all gone. And so what then do you do with your time? What then are you doing with this busy lifestyle that has been blanketed as the American dream? And how are you activating in that place of purpose in order to bring all of those dreams that God has already laid within you into fruition, because you're now furloughed, because you're working from home, because your kids are at your feet, and you're realizing that there's need for homeschooling or parenting strategies or sleep training. And these are all different types of businesses that I've physically seen this year happen. And it's amazing. I'm like, yes, this is the heartbeat of God, is not necessarily entrepreneurship, though I could come up with lots of quotes and verses and all the things that steward that as well, but really just the understanding of abundance and what that looks like, and everyone feeling like this might be a time of lack or a season of not enough, but I truly believe it's a season of more than enough.
Yeah. And like before I went on my first tour, actually sharing my message on stage last year, 2 weeks before, a close friend of mine took his life. And he was huge in the mental health arena and everything. And, that was one of the people that I was talking about Fear is a Liar. And we were working on his nonprofit, Anthem of Hope, which anthemofhope.org is still going strong. His wife, Julie, brother Christian, and sister Kaylee are doing such an amazing job with that. And I had just started helping as an admin with a Facebook group called Christian Mental Health Support Group. And I think it's at 15,000 users right now. Awesome. And when he passed, it was only 1,500.
Wow.
So it's just crazy to see that, God can still use this message. And, to a certain extent, I feel called to kind of carry that torch. but it's also a very hard thing to feel like, you know, there's so many people out there struggling and they need this encouragement.
Yeah.
They need it. It's life or death. So when I wake up in the morning, it's not like, how am I going to flip a profit on a clothing brand? It's no. It's like, how are we going to use the resources and the message to get across to people? Yeah. We're not a nonprofit. It's a for-profit business. We donate to nonprofits. I feel like there needs to be more entrepreneurs in ministry. I feel like they're, and no, not dissing on nonprofits or anything, but there's so many of them, so many great choices. I don't want to be in that field. Yeah. Somebody else can really use it. And I've got so much drive in the entrepreneurial space that I want that extra boost. We're not relying on donations. We are selling merchandise with a purpose. Yeah, that's good. So it's just a whole different thing. I'm not here to replace Jared Wilson. I'm not here to be like a suicide advocate 100%. I'm here to talk about real issues with real people and help people get through dark seasons. Yeah. So Trevor is Trevor. You are you. If you're listening to this, remember your identity is not within someone else or someone else's movement. Yes, you can get behind their movement. Find a way to make it your own. Yeah. Carry that message. Share it with your friends. So good. Just be yourself. Don't feel like you have to be a tagline for someone else's brand. Create your own. And if you do feel like you want to get behind someone's brand, do it. Support them. I guarantee you they will appreciate the heck out of it. Yeah, definitely. So, and you know, everybody has a different role in that organizational chart. If you want to look at it from the perspective of business, to know that we need the supporters, we need the word of mouth spreaders, we need the support in the area that you're really good at. And so, not to say that you have to start this huge movement to be an entrepreneur. You can be an entrepreneur that supports the huge movement. And that's a lot of the people that I coach there. I'm coaching coaches who help support the entrepreneur. And it's so needed because our bandwidth is only so much. Yeah. Eventually you will not be able to ship and pack and write those notes. And as much as it might be your heartbeat, there's going to come a time that God needs you in other places with the people, which is the full mission and the full purpose of what it is that you're doing. Yeah. So it's the recognition of self that your gifts and talents and your zone of genius have just as much purpose as the person who's on the mic or the person who's on the stage or the person who might seemingly be in the limelight. Y'all, being in the limelight isn't always what it's cracked up to be. And we see that every single day with people who are taking their lives who are in the limelight. Yeah. And I'm very open about the whole business, with Fear is a Liar. When we get more sales, that's when I'll invest in Stronger Than Your Symptoms. And that's when we'll launch that. So when people are like, when are you going to come out with new merch? It's like, I invested all by myself. I fully fund every single thing that goes through. So until we sell X amount of shirts and hats that we already have, I can't go and invest in more. There is a place and a time for you to strategize things. And a lot of people get ahead of themselves, and I've done it before. I ordered way too many shirts to get the better discount in bulk. So I had to go we've got to sell X amount. But the reason I did that is to where we can be more affordable. I never want costs to be a reason people don't buy. Yeah. So what we're doing now is it's $15 t-shirts that includes shipping. So you don't have to pay for shipping. But that's because that investment up front of X amount of money to get the shirts at a lower cost to where I can in return cut our prices in half. Right. It's amazing. So that's more people. Very unusual. Yeah. Yeah. So I dream big. I dream out of the box, and I'm not going to stop. Yeah. But when people ask when new merch is coming out, I'm like, hey, go to fearisaliar.co, buy you up some merch, get you a hat and a shirt, or we have 3 for $30. Nice. If you get 3 pieces, you get it's a great Christmas present. Exactly. It's so good. There's so many different options. I never want it to not be affordable for people, to the point to where if somebody DMs me and they're like, I can't afford it. Yeah. A lot of times I'll just send it. Yeah. So it's not all for profit. It's about the message. If it's something you can get behind, why should finance be a reason you can't be a part of it?
That's really good. It's really good. So we're closing in on time here, and I want to just serve the active listeners that are here now and those that will be to come. What in your journey do you feel like is one of your biggest takeaways that you would just want somebody to sit down and serve up to all of the people that are in their frame of influence, that ripple effect that you were talking about, like the people that they are directly in contact with? What's that, not just the message, but what's the transformation experience that you want them to be able to have for themselves?
I mean, start where you are right now. Be vulnerable with yourself. If you struggle with anxiety or depression and you refuse to admit it, and you refuse to get help for it, you're isolating yourself and you're not actively improving. So be vulnerable with yourself. Be so intentional about being a loving person, but start with yourself. Like you can pour into other people, but when your cup is empty, how can you overflow that? So make sure your cup is full before you start pouring into other people. And maybe you're already pouring in other people. And for me, as a person that loves to pour out, sometimes I have to go fill my cup first. And that is a whole mental strategy, but take time for yourself today. Like do breathing techniques. I use an app called Calm, which is really amazing, that you can go into and just do breathing techniques. A lot of people associate meditation with Hinduism and Buddhism, and it's not about that. Like you can have a prayerful journey with Jesus and just practice your breathing. So like breathe in for 7 seconds, hold it for 7 seconds, and let it go slow for 7 seconds, and just keep doing it. And I promise you, it'll start fading your anxiety away. And maybe a call to action that would be really cool is something that nobody wants to do. If you're struggling with anxiety or depression, or maybe you're just feeling groggy, go take an ice cold shower. Just stay in there for like 30 seconds to a minute. I try to do 2 minutes. And at first, like it's going to suck so bad and you never get used to it, but just get in there and let the water hit your head or your chest and just like until your heart starts to slow down to a normal pace. And I promise you, you're going to see so much improvement like on the spot from that.
That's so good. Are you familiar with Wim Hof?
I don't believe so.
Oh my gosh. So this is like his methodology, both from the breathing perspective and from ice cold anything. He holds the Guinness World Book record of swimming beneath ice cap with just his regular lungs and Speedo, the furthest distance for the longest duration of time. I think he can hold his breath for like some crazy amount of minutes. I don't want to quote it wrong, so I won't say, but for some reason, the number 7 is sticking out in my mind. So it's outrageous. Anyway, he takes people on these retreats and he will have them learn how to breathe effectively. We're talking about that adrenaline, right? There's nothing more adrenaline rushing than getting in an ice cold shower, an ice cold bath. You know, football players do it for their body. It's the same thing. When he takes them on these retreats, teaches them how to really be in tune with their body and get them to be able to get past a hypothermic state solely based on breath. He has all of these studies where he's been in hospitals and they've injected him with things like E. coli, and he has solely breathed his way out of it. And so it always, like, he's not really in his faith. He's got a spiritual realm to him for sure. But I always think of the breath of life that literally God gifted us when he created Adam and Eve. And it was formulated out of breath. And therefore, there is such power in that place for us as human beings to just resonate with the breath that God has gifted us. And that could be in an ice cold shower. That could be on the beach somewhere. That could be in your car. But realizing that there is such power in yourself that then creates that ripple effect for everybody else. If you are aligned when you look in the mirror at the end of the day.
Yeah. And if you are like me and your brain races a lot, try to find a good playlist to listen to. Albums that I highly, 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 highly recommend, because every time I need that moment, I go to the same 3 albums. One of them just came out last week. It's Carrie Job's The Blessing, is so phenomenal. Her album, The Garden, is great for anxiety and just relieving stress. And then also Kim Walker-Smith had an album come out this year called Wild Heart. And those 3 albums, I don't know why those 3 pop into my head, but it's just like, if I really want to dive in, like I know that I can purely go to those. And then also there's a really cool album called Reflect Love Back that I really love. But I recommend those because they're so good. Like they just soothe your soul and they feel good. And then Brian and Jen Johnson, through all these years, I'm going to quit naming albums. I can go all day.
Love it. You're the musician at heart.
So good. Like they are so good for you to just listen to and breathe and remember and reflect on Jesus. Like first and foremost, like even if you're not a Christian, those albums will relax you. And there are instrumental versions for some of those. So if you don't want to hear about Jesus yet, like that's totally cool. Go listen to the instrumental. But even if you're not a believer, it's just so applicable to every single person that can listen to it. So
I think a big piece of that, just to piggyback it, because I think that there are power in words, is when your mind races 24/7. I totally get that. It's totally me. Is to have something like that deposited into your spirit, so it hushes your mind and you're actually receiving something else. It really it just provides this sense of calm, especially if you have anxiety or depression of any sort. It's like, get yourself outside of your head so that you can have fresh words deposited over you. And ultimately, I think that's what Fear is a Liar. That's what all of the mission, I can understand all the brands that you're going to come out with, all the people who are coming on to Trevor Talks, that's their heart, is to get a message across to you that you're not alone, that fear is a liar. And ultimately, the next one that's coming out is
Stronger Than Your Symptoms.
Come on, people.
It's all of these quote unquote brands. They're really mission statements for me. It was always hard for me to advocate and even get behind my own brands until I got the mission down first. So like Trevor Talks, Fear is a Liar. I'm so proud of those. Like I'll talk about them all day. Even with Fear is a Liar, I wanted to have something that I don't have to think twice about wearing, like the hat. Like I wear so much and people are like, why do you wear your own merch? You're not supposed to do that. And I was like, only people that have terrible merch don't wear their own merch.
I was going to say, I've never heard that before.
Yeah. So even I had some hats made for our street team for the podcast with a Trevor Talks podcast logo on it. And it's just like one of those things. I'll wear that in a Walmart. I had somebody stop me and they're like, I love that show. And they were using language I'm not going to use, but it was just so funny because they're like, what's your name? And I'm like, oh, my name's Trevor. And they're like, no, it was great. It was the response that I would want to see. And it was just such an encouraging thing.
That's rad.
To experience that. And if God's calling you to do something, do it. Quit putting yourself through the agony of just overthinking it. I overthink everything, or I used to. And God's actively healing me in that. So believe in yourself, take a chance, take a risk, invest it. When you really want to get into it, put your own money into it. I don't care if it's $1 or $1,000, put your own money into it. I guarantee you'll start to have a little bit more appreciation for it.
So good. You're speaking my language over there, Trevor. We could talk for days, you guys. I hope that you go and find Trevor in all the places we established at the beginning of the show. But again, it's Trevor Talks on Instagram, Trevor Talks Podcast, and Fear is a Liar Co. Also on Instagram. So you guys check it out. And I hope that you come to Virginia Beach to speak on a stage with me here soon. Please. When the people come back to the world of gathering. We've been gathering since day one. So
we can do a drive-in show.
Yes, let's do it. That's all the rage now. We can make anything happen, you guys, no matter what the state of the world is in. So just prayers over our nation right now, prayers over the people who are out voting right now, and prayers for you, Trevor, and the mission and the people that you're going to touch and have touched thus far. And I just pray over anxiety and depression that fear is a liar, that the enemy does not have a stronghold on our hearts, on our minds, on our bodies, or our spirit. That God is in control, that he's always been in control and he always will be in control. If we just release the control that we have on our own grip and give it back to him in submission. He is a good father and he wants good things for you and your life and your dreams. And he uniquely designed you with this fingerprint that only you can do and only you can make those waves. So start making them today. Step out in adrenaline, in a positive adrenaline, so that you can just affect change and create light just as Trevor does every single day. We thank you and we praise your sweet name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for having me. This was so awesome. And for everybody that listened this far in, God bless you. Just keep being you. Be authentic.
Thanks, Trevor. See you later.